Good evening, everyone. If you're tuning in, we're just going to wait a few minutes like usual to let people jump on board the meeting. So you've got a few minutes if you need to grab something to drink or get settled in. Evening, everyone. We're just going to wait a few minutes, let other people join the town hall, and so we'll start shortly. We'll wait just a few more seconds to let people jump on if they can. Well, Deb, why don't we go ahead and get started? Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Doug Kennedy. I'm the co-chair of the TCC. Last week, we said we're taking some time off unless there were any developments, and there were a couple developments and even a development within the last hour or so that we want to talk about tonight. So we're back, and we can tell you we've been at it every day since we last talked to you, and we're happy to be back. But there is one thing that we're not all that happy about. Normally, you'd see John Humphrey here, and I'm feeling the pressure because John does such a wonderful job with these town halls. But unfortunately, John's father passed away in this last week. So John is with family tonight. He's has to travel across the country to take care of this and be with family and take care of things. John's father was 90, and I never had the good fortune of meeting his dad, but I can tell you he had to have been proud of everything that John has done for all of us survivors as the co-chair of the TCC. He is a brother to all of us, and he should be one to all of you. His strength is immeasurable. So I have a hunch that he's probably watching tonight, and if he is, I hope you will all send him some strength. And John, I hope you're with family, you're traveling safely, and we look forward to you coming back, brother. So everybody, I'll be kind of hosting things tonight in John's absence. We do have another TCC member with us tonight. Rob Lawson is with us and is going to be speaking in a little while. The question and answer is open. Let me just also remind everyone that the question and answer is really for general questions. Anything specific, you need to get specific answers from your attorney or from a legal professional. Also, at the end of this town hall, we'll have the email address that we discussed tonight, a reminder of where you can get the transcript for the hearing. So that'll be up at the end of this call as well. So it is, I don't even have my watch on. It is December the middle of December. You're probably feeling a little bit anxious and ready for the vote to be over. We understand that, and we're with you on that. So hang in there. We're going to talk a little bit more about the voting and when the results are going to be in. We'll remind everybody of that. And I also want to mention something, and I'm going to talk about this at the very end of this hearing. TCC has been chatting about this a little bit. All of us on the TCC were survivors of sexual assault, and when it happened to us, we swore that we would never be victims again, and we would never be bullied. And recently, some things have been said about the TCC from a group that opposes us, I guess would be a polite way to put it. And we're not going to sit back and stand for it. So I'm going to have a couple things to say about that much later tonight. So the purpose of these hearings is to educate you, keep you updated with what's going on in this bankruptcy case, give you a little bit of a sense of where we're headed and what to expect in the near future. It's hard to predict much further than that. So to kind of get us started a little bit on that, I'm going to ask our attorney, Jim Stang, to chat with us about probably the reason you came on tonight, to see if we had a view with what's going on the Century and local council settlement, and why we don't think it changes anything other than highlights how bad this settlement is. So Jim, I'll let you take it away.
Good evening, everybody. Before we get into the Century Chubb settlement, Doug referred to something that's happened even just in the past hour. And let me just talk about that for a moment. People may be familiar with a company called Purdue Pharmaceutical. It was an opioid manufacturer and got a lot of publicity because its owners, a family named Sackler, contributed many billions of dollars in the bankruptcy case to getting a release of the claims that existed against them personally. The bankruptcy court approved a plan that in exchange for that contribution of billions of dollars, the Sacklers would be released of their personal liability as officers and directors in connection with the company. That ruling approving that plan was taken up on appeal. And within the last hour, the district court, which is the first appellate court in the bankruptcy process of appeals, goes from the bankruptcy court in New York, would go to the district court, and then to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. So the district court, which is the first level of appeal, issued its ruling today, a 142-page opinion. And the judge concluded that the releases that were being given to the Sacklers were not enforceable and could not be contained in a reorganization plan. Now, the Purdue case is in what we call the Second Circuit. The Boy Scout case is in the Third Circuit. And those circuits, there are 11 of them, don't always agree on everything. And what this district court judge has said is not binding on Judge Silverstein in the Boy Scout case, because she speaks from the Second Circuit and Judge Silverstein speaks from the Third Circuit. However, all the bankruptcy nerds have been following Purdue very closely, looking for guidance, both from the bankruptcy court, and now we'll be looking for guidance from the district court. This opinion may go up on another appeal. We don't know. It really was only issued in the last hour, but the judge addresses many things that are germane and relevant to what's going on in the Boy Scout plan. So we're good, but we can't digest a 142-page opinion in an hour and report back to you with any firm ideas about what the judge said and how, and what she didn't say, and how it could affect the Boy Scouts and how it might not affect the Boy Scouts. But you'll probably see some headlines if you're following the internet news, and even in some print tomorrow, that this Purdue reorganization plan has been rejected by the first appellate court. So that's breaking news, folks, truly breaking news. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the Century Chubb settlement. This was filed very recently with the Bankruptcy Court. I think it was about 2 days ago. It is a very, very complicated document, and it's just the term sheet. It's not actually the final agreement, but it does put out the outlines in some detail as to what the Chubbs and Century settlement are. I use those terms together because there's a corporate relationship between Century and Chubb, and the deal settles claims against Century and Chubb. So I will try to give this to you in a medium-sized nutshell. The first piece is that Century/Chubb is paying $800 million to the settlement trust. The money comes in chunks, but by the time BSA were to exit, the full money would be in escrow. And then the money is released depending on how the court, whether the appellate courts approve the deal or not. What does Century get in exchange for that? Century gets a release of any risk under its insurance policies issued to the Boy Scouts. It gets rid of any risk on policies that it issued to the local councils. And it gets rid of any risk on policies issued to chartered organizations. Remember, this stool has 3 legs, the stool being your claims. You might have claims against BSA, you might have claims against the local councils, and you might have claims against the charters. And all 3 have insurance. So to the extent that Century and or Chubb issued insurance policies to any of those 3, it is off the risk for the abuse claims in exchange for $800 million. And so if you have a claim against a charter that is covered by insurance that was issued by Century or Chubb, your claim is going to go to the trust and be handled through the trust. That is the main part of the Century Chubb deal. But there's more, because there are other insurance companies that have issued, and by the way, the same is true for Hartford. So we have a Hartford deal, we have a Century Chubb deal. The concept is the same for both, or all 3, if you will. If you wrote a policy to any of those 3 entities, your policies are returned to you. You pay money. I think the Hartford deal is $785 million. This deal is $800 million. And all the claims that would have been covered by that insurance go to the trust for administration. And you can no longer sue the charters, the Boy Scouts, or the locals if they were covered by those policies. So what's left? Well, you have other insurance companies who have not yet settled. And as you may know, a big part of the Boy Scout plan is to resolve the liability of the charters and to resolve the liability of the locals. In order to resolve the liability of the charters, who may have been insured by other insurance companies, the local councils and the BSA are putting up some additional money. Now, there's a but here, and I try not to make this too complicated. What I'm about to say does not apply to any Methodist affiliated charters or Catholic affiliated charters. For reasons that I don't think it's necessary to get into, those groups of chartered organizations are not covered by what I'm about to say. So if your charter was a Kiwanis club, if your charter was a police department, if your charter was a church outside of those 2 religious denominations, I'm talking about those. I'm not talking about the Catholics, and I'm not talking about the Methodists, and I'm not talking about the Mormons who have their own settlement. So how are those charters getting off the hook? Again, not the Catholics, not the Methodists, not the Mormons. Two things are happening. The Boy Scouts are putting up some additional money, and the local councils are putting up some additional money. What is that additional money? The Boy Scouts have committed to putting up an additional $100 million payable. It's a little hard to tell from the agreement, but probably payable in 2035. And it depends on their membership having a very, very substantial increase. My recollection is that the current Boy Scout membership is in the 750 to 800,000 youth. This agreement to put up this additional money requires that that membership be at 1.5 million. And that the adult volunteer number hits 500,000. I honestly don't remember how many adult volunteers there currently are. But in order for the Boy Scouts to put up this additional money, they have to hit those increased membership levels. And I'll tell you, my best recollection is that the membership projections, at least for the next 5 years, are, well, let's just say, I personally have questions as to whether we can hit them, whether they can hit the 1.5 million. Better minds than mine, though, will inform me as to whether that's feasible or not. So if they hit those numbers, the 1.5 million in youth membership, the 500,000 in adults, they start to share with the trust the membership fee money up to $100 million. But my read of the agreement says that will start around 2035. There are some other conditions to them putting up that, sharing that fee money, but it's frankly a little too technical for tonight. But those are to me, the major conditions are the membership numbers. That's the Boy Scout piece. What the local councils are doing, again, to get the relief for the charters, is to put up essentially another $40 million. They would put up an additional 15 in cash and or property. We do not know whether it's going to be cash or property or some combination of those, but that's what they would put up. And there would be another addition to the promissory note that they have agreed to do. They have in their deal, when you hear the local councils are putting up $600 million, 100 of that is a promissory note that gets paid depending on how the pension plan does. If the pension plan is doing really well, then they'll have some extra money to put towards the note. If the pension plan isn't doing well, it affects their obligation to pay on the note. So that $100 million note is going to go to 125. 15 extra from cash and property, 25 on the note gives you the additional 40. So the Boy Scouts with their 100 million based on future things happening, and the local councils based on, in part, on future things happening, have agreed to put up money so that the local council, so that the charters, other than the Catholics, other than the Methodists, and other than the Mormons, are released of any claims against them. That's how I read the term sheet. Now, I want to be very clear because I know we have a lot of folks listening who are from the Boy Scouts and from the local councils and possibly from charters. We have tried for the last 2 days to get on the phone with the Boy Scouts to have them walk us through this term sheet. And no one's dodging us, but we just haven't had we haven't coordinated on the time yet. We're trying to do that. So folks, if I've misstated what you think your deal is, I'm sure you'll tell me that when we get on the phone together. But this is what I understand the deal to be. So Doug, that's the report on the Century and Chubb deal.
Thanks, Jim. And you know, it really highlights how important this local council piece is of this. And I think that's a great segue into Rob Lawson joining us tonight. Rob has been a member of the Tort Claimants Committee. He is a survivor like the other 8 men on the Tort Claimants Committee. And he has just done an amazing job being informed and asking great questions and being actively engaged. So when I had to call to the bullpen tonight, Rob happily answered the call, and we're so happy you could be with us tonight to chat a little bit about what this local counsel piece means to him as another survivor and one of your advocates. So Rob, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate the intro. As Doug said, my name's Rob Lawson. I'm from Gainesville, Georgia, about an hour northeast of Atlanta. I'm married, have 3 wonderful kids. I was a Boy Scout back in the mid 1980s. I rose through the ranks and I did achieve my Eagle Scout. I was also a member of the Order of the Arrow, the scouting fraternity, the exclusive scouting fraternity, the Order of the Arrow. And it was during the Order of the Arrow 3-day initiation ceremony where I was abused. A lot of times you'll hear the initiation ceremony referred to as the ordeal, and it certainly was an ordeal for me. But again, that's where I was assaulted. My assault occurred at a campground called Rainy Mountain in the Northeast Georgia foothills, just below the Appalachian Mountains. Rainy Mountain is owned by the Northeast Georgia Council, and they have, in addition to Order of the Arrow programs there, they have other programs also for Northeast Georgia Scouts. Because I am in Georgia, as Doug said, the statute of limitations here in Georgia has changed somewhat in the past few years, but it's still considered a gray state. And so for this bankruptcy, we are categorized, Georgia is categorized as one of the gray states. So me and everyone else in gray states understand the importance to all survivors for getting maximum settlement possible out of this bankruptcy. After being picked as one of the 9 survivors appointed to the TCC by the U.S. trustee for the Department of Justice in Delaware in early March of 2020, the TCC, we pretty much got straight to work. We've had around 300 meetings, weekly meetings with our brothers and fellow TCC members and survivors. We also have weekly meetings with our TCC professionals, state court counsel as well. The U.S. trustee chose the 9 survivors on the TCC from a wide range of backgrounds and locations across the United States and Guam. We have 1 member from Guam. And we hired an outstanding team of professionals, including the Chelsea Stain firm and others that do our accounting. And they have been excellent in navigating this difficult bankruptcy process, and we're very thankful and appreciative. Currently, each individual local counsel analysis or dashboard, as we like to call it, is up on the TCC website. You can log on to that at tccbsa.com and take a look at your respective local counsel and see all the information and materials and analysis there, and take a look at your own region. A very important piece of any settlement is the contributions that the local councils will make or proposing to make. One of the reasons the TCC does not support this current plan is we believe that the local councils can and should contribute more to a proposed settlement or plan. For example, for my former council, the Northeast Georgia Council, there are currently 106 claims filed citing this council, the Northeast Georgia Council, as where their abuse or the abuse occurred. And according to the Boy Scouts' own plan, those 106 claims against the Northeast Georgia Council are valued at between $22 and $134 million. That's 106 claims per the Boy Scouts plan valued at between $22 million and $134 million. However, the Northeast Georgia Council is only contributing $2.1 million, and it has $6.3 million in unrestricted assets. So on average, they're contributing only 5% of the values of those 106 claims. And only 16% of their unrestricted assets. So they're retaining about 84% of the assets they have available to compensate survivors. In addition, on a broader view, the TCC understands that the overall local councils across the country, on average, are only contributing a mere fraction of all local councils' total assets. And because of this factor, the TCC feels that local councils can contribute significantly more to help alleviate the suffering of survivors of childhood sexual abuse that occurred during their time in the Boy Scouts. That's why the TCC, or one of the reasons the TCC and I cannot support this plan. And again, we urge survivors to vote no, as you can see with Doug's background there. And for all the survivors out there, I just want you to know, we want you to know that the 9 other survivors on the TCC were working hard for all survivors. We ask that you remain patient and remain strong. And as we all know, most survivors of childhood sexual abuse go years, decades, or possibly their entire lifetime thinking that they are alone or that no one will believe them. But we want you all the survivors out there to know that we believe you, and we also want you to remember that you are not alone. We stand with you and we're fighting for you. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Rob. I really appreciate you coming on tonight. I really do. And thanks so much for all your hard work and the hard work of everybody on the TCC. Hey, Deb, before we move on, is there a theme or a question or something that's popping up on the question and answer that we should address?
There's been a few questions about where to find the local council analysis on the website. So I know we're going to get to that. Do you want to?
Yeah, why don't we go and do that now? Sure.
So, so as Jim mentioned, the local council information is available on the website, and I'll show you what one of them look like, and Jim can walk you through it. But if you're on your phone, you need to look at the drop-down menu where it says local council analysis. If you're on a web browser, there's a bar across the top, and you'll see local council analysis. If you click on that, they're there by state. And then you have to search and find your particular council. For example, you just heard Rob talk about, I think, the Northwest Georgia. Did I get that right, Rob? Northeast. There's also a Northwest Georgia local council. So there's 2 of them. They're right there, but they're under Georgia. So if you find your state, you find your council, and you'll see the information. And Jim, do you want to walk through it? I can share my screen. Let's see. Here we go.
Jim, go off mute.
This is what the website looks like. This
Oh,
is
okay.
There you go,
Deb doesn't know this, but we changed the homepage of tccbsa.com this afternoon. And there's actually a rectangular box that shares the space where it says, how do I vote? The video box. So you can go across the tabs, you can do the drop-down menu, but as you open the homepage, there's a big rectangular box that says local council information. So you can't miss it. So we went through one of these dashboards at a prior call. I want to make clear that this information that I'm just going to spend a few minutes walking you through comes directly from the disclosure statement that was approved by the court. None of the information that's on this particular dashboard and the others that Deb mentioned is anything other than what the disclosure statement says, which the court approved after 5 days of hearing as containing adequate information. So let's just get through it. Obviously, you've got the name of the local council, the state it's in. California is an open state. There's no statute of limitations defense there. This is the number of claims that, according to the Boy Scouts consultant, were recorded against this council. For the most part, people, well, I shouldn't put it that way. Approximately half of the claims, maybe not quite half, but a lot of them, and it's in the footnotes, people didn't identify their local council. And I get it. I was a Cub Scout. I have no idea what my local council was. And so this number is what people have been able to identify. But there could be many more claims against the Silicon Valley Monterey Bay Council. We just don't know. They're in the 82,000 and change total claims. These are the ones that could be identified to this local council. So then you've got two valuations. The claims are somewhere between $105 million and $472 million. And that's the claim range. The contribution made by this council is $10 million. Its unrestricted assets are a little over $33 million. So this box here shows you the percentages for the contribution that's being made. It's because of some scales, it's somewhere between, their contribution is somewhere between 2% and 9.5% of the value of the claims. And in terms of the restricted net assets, the unrestricted net assets, they're contributing something between 7% and not quite 32%. So the footnotes are important to read. I would ask that you read them. But this gives you a sense of how much they're putting up as against their liability and how much they're putting up as against their unrestricted net assets. Every dashboard on the website looks like this in terms of its layout. And the footnotes, I believe, are identical. So Deb, that's the report on the local council piece.
The other question, Jim, that I'm seeing lots of people are asking about the USA Gymnastics settlement and how that compares to what's happening here. Maybe you could take a minute and jump in on that.
And I'm not saying this to try to sound like I'm being overly sentimental. I was on the USA Gymnastics case with our partner, Alon Sharf. It was an honor, and we still do represent the committee. It was an honor representing these women. These folks are extraordinary, and they range from Olympians to folks who just were going through an Olympics, a gymnastics gym, and they had the misfortune of encountering, in most cases, this so-called Dr. Larry Nassar. That case has been going on for, I think it's close to 3 years. And the final settlement, which was approved by the court a day or two ago, on average was $800,000 per person. And that money is in addition to some of the money folks received because of Michigan State University's liability for the abuse they suffered. But just USA Gymnastics, the average is $800,000. And when people have asked me over the last few days, how do you get from settlements in hand with the Boy Scouts that are averaging, in our opinion, current settlements, including Century and Chubb, about $29,000 a person? And how do you look at your other hand and go $800,000 a person? There are differences between the cases, but one of the real differences is how hard you're fighting with the insurance companies and making them pay their fair share. Now, we're not committing to you that we're getting in Boy Scouts $800,000 a person. Yeah, so please, that's not the takeaway. The takeaway is that if you want maximum value from your opponents, you have to confront them with all the legal arguments and factual arguments you can make for them to pay what they should be paying. And as folks who've been following these town halls know, we don't think Hartford's paying anything close to what it should be paying. We don't think Century is paying what it should be paying. And we don't think the local councils are paying anything close to what they should be paying. So you get low numbers because the pressure hasn't been put on them. So that's USA Gymnastics.
Thanks, Jim. Jim, one thing I want to point out to everyone, and please correct me if I misspeak, but the analyses that we have up for all the local councils are different than the analyses that we completed using our financial consultants, BRG, and were shared with the local councils. But because of privacy reasons, we can't post all of that information. Did I unpack that correctly?
Yeah, I wouldn't quite call it privacy. The information that was supplied to us that drove a lot of the additional analysis of the local councils was given to us on a confidential basis. Their expert reports have been exchanged between the parties that include an analysis of what the local councils can pay. If we have a contested confirmation hearing in front of Judge Silverstein, the more in-depth analyses will be presented to her through a report done by our financial experts. And depending on what the court needs, some of specific local council, more complete dashboards will be presented. But the information you're seeing on the dashboard I walked you through comes from the disclosure statement. And we tried to put it in a format that people can see and make their own determination on whether a local council is putting up enough of its, if its contribution is material enough, and how much of its unrestricted assets it's putting up.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. So obviously we're winding the days down quickly here until the voting will be over. So we wanted to give everyone an update on where voting is and what you should be thinking about right now, since we're all casting votes. And so we've asked Rich Pacholski to bring us up to speed on that.
Thanks, Doug, for introducing me. Thank you, Jim and Rob, for going through a detailed analysis as to, instead of what some people are hearing is additional monies that are being provided primarily by Century, somewhat by the local councils, that it's far too small an increase to justify the TCC moving from a no vote to a yes vote. So the TCC has been adamant, even with the increases, that the increases are so insignificant that it is not worth a change of vote. But we do want to spend a moment getting into the voting. Some of this you've heard, some of it you may not have, some of it may be a clarification, but I'd like to spend a couple of minutes and walk you through it. As we mentioned last week, the initial voting deadline was December 14th. That obviously has passed. And the parties agreed to an extension to December 28th. So, approximately 12 days from now, people still have, but the ballots must be received. There are really no exceptions by 4 p.m. Eastern. Now, after the ballots are fully received by Omni, they will provide preliminary results that will be filed with the court on January 4th. They then go through a fairly detailed auditing process. And the hope is that there would be minimal, if any, changes from the preliminary to the final, but the final will be filed with the court on January 17th. Now, at this point, everyone still has an opportunity to either vote, or if you voted, to do nothing because you're satisfied with the vote, or you may want to change the vote. If you want to get If you want to change your vote, or for instance, you want to get a ballot because for whatever reason you don't have one or you misplaced it, you would email BSA ballots, which will be one word, at omniagnt.com. So it's omniagnt.com. The omniagnt is one word and then .com. So if you want to change your vote or get a ballot, that you will go through Omni at their site. Now, we've heard a lot of people question whether their vote has been accurately sent in. We've heard that people are very concerned about it as to whether Omni has recorded your vote correctly for one reason or another. You really have two choices. One is to call Omni. I understand that, again, they have a lot of people, but there are a lot of people who are calling them. So it's taken some time. You can either call them or you can email them. The benefit of an email is that you will get a response in writing. So if there's ever an issue, you can show that they confirmed you voted yes or you voted no, and that if it's incorrectly been tabulated, that you can show that the reason for the that it has actually been incorrectly tabulated. So that is the way to deal with any concerns about your vote. Now, we've also heard complaints that people are getting either bombarded or their lawyers have been working to get them to try to change a vote, whether it's yes to no or no to yes. But at some point, if you're dissatisfied in the sense that your lawyer keeps calling you or somebody from that office keeps calling you and you want it to stop, then you should send them a direction in writing to stop. If you're fine with it, then you can continue taking the calls or doing as you please. But we understand, and we've seen it in the court record, that people are dissatisfied in certain cases with their lawyer continuing to call them, and you should direct them otherwise. That is your choice. At the end of the day, those who are represented by counsel have the right to instruct their counsel how they want to move forward, whether it's how to vote or whether to vote. Though we certainly encourage everyone to vote, but that is within your decision-making, and you have the right to ask your attorney to act appropriately. Now, to make it very clear, whether it's a yes vote or no vote, even if for some reason you abstain as part of the vote, which again is not something we recommend, we want every vote to be valid. We want every survivor to have the right to vote however they want to vote, and we will be focusing that as, if not our number one priority, pretty close to it. We want to make sure that people have the right to vote. If there are any concerns, then you should speak to your lawyer or Omni. If you don't have counsel, you can reach out to us. But if you have counsel, we recommend you go through that counsel, but we want to make sure that you vote. Now, again, we've said this before, it is important to vote, whatever your vote is, and every ballot that is submitted in a timely manner will be counted, and every vote in this case will count, and it's important to vote. Now, again, the TCC cannot be any clearer, and it's one reason for the town hall that we're having today is to explain the additional compensation that has been provided, in this case by Century, and to some degree potentially by the BSA and the local councils, but some of that is contingent, as Jim very accurately explained. But while the TCC does not support the settlement, we want all survivors to have the best information they possibly can have to make the best decision for their individual situation. This is not one size fits all. There are different states with statute of limitations. There's different abuse. There are different views on the plan. You need to think about it and vote the way you deem appropriate. So again, while the TCC opposes the plan, does not believe that what has been added is of significance to the point that the TCC changes its mind, it hopes it will, but that's not where we are today. And we think things in some respects are getting worse before they're getting better. we do want everybody to vote. And again, hopefully that has been of some benefit in understanding it. You still have, give or take, 12 days, and we would recommend that you vote or change your vote if you deem it's appropriate. And for that, I thank everybody, and we'll turn it back to you, Doug.
Doug,
Thanks.
Doug, can I
Thanks, Rich.
interrupt for a second, just for a
Please,
moment?
Jim.
I was looking at the Q&A and someone, I think, misunderstood something I said. The TCJC, that's the Mormon Church, that settlement money, which is $250 million, has been earmarked by the TCJC for Mormon survivors only. But the other monies that are coming from Century, Chubb, Hartford are going into the settlement trust for the benefit of everyone, regardless of whether your abuse occurred during the year that they provided insurance. Someone asked, did Stang say the Century money is only going to those who were covered by Century policies? No, that money is going into a total pool for the benefit of all 82,000 plus survivors. So I just wanted to clear that up because I saw that as a question.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for clearing that up. We're winding down a little bit, but one of the things we did want to touch base on was some update with youth protection. Jim and Rich and I had the opportunity to meet with a representative or someone representing the Boy Scouts to begin to have a conversation and to better understand our proposals and where we were coming from on youth protection. We've been over that on past town hall meetings, and I should mention that the transcripts and the videos are all on our website, TCC BSA. It was, I'd like to think, a productive conversation. We'll see. But the one thing I want to stress to every survivor, and I have heard this time and time again, every member of the TCC has heard it from survivors, or the communication discussion within the TCC. To a person, every survivor has said, we want to be sure what happened to us doesn't continue to happen, and we want to know how well the Boy Scouts are performing on that. Transparency is probably that most critical point that is really bubbling up to the surface on all this discussion of youth protection. And I couldn't help but be reminded this week, because of my profession, there's a thing called the Clery Act. It is a law that requires every college and university in the country to publish annually on a 5-year rolling basis its rates of things like assault and robbery and hate crime and sexual assault as well. And it allows parents in this country and anyone attending school to go and look and see what those rates are in those colleges and universities, to see how well they're performing to protect their students. And quite frankly, the TCC sees no reason why the Boy Scouts that are charged with the protection of our children in this country shouldn't say, you know what, we're going to be every bit as transparent, and we want people to know how well we're doing to protect our nation's youth. So I just want to share with everybody, going forward, we are continuing to really focus on transparency, so everyone knows in the future, if the Boy Scouts continue, how well they're performing, so parents and guardians and people can make informed choices. Before we start to wrap this up, Deb, are there any other questions or points that we need to chat about?
Let me take a quick look. I think
Sure.
we hit the questions about the lots of questions are, will the Century money go to everybody? I think Jim took care of that. Just one settlement is limited. The rest of them are going to everybody. I think, no, I think we hit most of them. There's some, specific questions, which we try to answer the general questions that apply to everybody. So.
Hey, Deb, can I just answer one generally, because I think
Sure.
there's one, looking at them quickly, and I want to make something very clear. The TCC has been designated by some of our opponents as the party of no. And someone asked in the question and answer, when are you guys going to finally say there's a settlement good enough? So I just want to repeat something I said last week. Number one, we don't think the youth protection is even close to adequate. We are never going to support anything that doesn't fix youth protection going forward. We do not want that to be on our watch where people will criticize the TCC for allowing that to happen and not objecting. So until that happens, the TCC will object. Number two, the trust as presently structured, which was effectively a deal between the BSA and the coalition, there were others potentially involved, but they were the main ones, is not independent. Until there's real independence, the TCC is going to object. It's not that complicated. We've conveyed it. And number three, that the compensation is satisfactory. We've made it very clear to the parties that if you are going to settle on the cheap with Hartford and ask for expansive releases, and you're going to settle on the cheap with Century, and again, ask for, and Century gets expansive releases, then the TCC is going to object. So this isn't a matter, we would love to make a deal. My entire practice is making deals. And this one is just a bad deal. And we're not going to cave just because it's the easy way to go. And it's not because USA Gymnastics got 800,000 per, and right now the average is about 28 or 29,000. Cases are different, but that's dramatic. And so, yes, we are going to ask that the plan not be confirmed, but it's not because we just want to oppose it. It's because it's completely inadequate.
Thanks, Rich. Well said. Well said. I want to add a couple things. And one of these is going to sound a little personal, and it's from everyone on the TCC. It's from Rob and I and the other 7 members. Our phones and email blew up recently when we found out at a town hall that was being held by the coalition that they went after the TCC pretty hard and saying that the TCC is making money off of this bankruptcy. I want to be clear about something, and I want to remind whoever's writing the script for those coalition town hall meetings, the TCC isn't making a dime off of this. The TCC is made up of 9 survivors. We have professionals that are working for us. Those professionals, thank God, are part of the bank process and are paid by the debtor. Those professionals are working for every single survivor out there, not just the survivors of some attorneys or some group, every single survivor out there, as Rich said, to get the very best settlement. We interviewed professionals, and every single person on the TCC ones we have, we think they're fantastic. They're at the top of their game and they make a good paycheck. And I feel happy about that because they earn it. I know in the last few weeks, the pace of this work is incredible. And to those who had much is expected, much is given, and they're working their asses off, quite frankly. So I'm not going to sit back and listen to criticism about the amount of money that our professionals make, not the TCC, because Rob and I and everyone else is a volunteer. We only make a dime if anybody else gets an award just like us. But what really irks us is the fact that in this settlement that we're voting for, gang, is the provision that should the settlement be approved since last August, the attorneys that serve the coalition are making $950,000 a month, and will also get a lump sum of $10.5 million on top of that. So you know that old saying about being in glass houses and throwing stones? Well, that's what's going on right now. So if you're going to criticize our professionals, you want to throw those stones from inside your glass house, we're going to throw them right back at you. So please, let's just deal with facts. From the very first town hall, the TCC has been committed to facts. So I hope those facts that we just told you help you understand why maybe we're a little pissed off about that. Last thing is, I just want to remind everybody that unless there's future developments, we're taking a little bit of a hiatus on the town halls. Please check our website, TCC BSA, for when we're going to have the next town hall. We'll have a slide up at the end of this meeting with that information and the email addresses. So stay tuned. I want to thank our attorneys tonight for putting this together. I want to thank Rob for joining us. And most importantly, John Humphrey, we're thinking about you, brother. And everyone out there, please, please, please be safe this holiday season. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Happy holiday.
Thanks, everyone.